Okay, today I wanted to talk about kind of the whole genre of isekai. Isekai is usually what I always call it, but isekai. Um, and basically what they offer, and kind of to help offer some sort of explanation of why we see so many, goodness, so many of these types of stories. So, short definition of what is an isekai. Isekai kind of just means the main characters, usually it's come up as basically the main characters transported into another world, basically. So it's like suddenly you're wandering along and now you're in another world, and bam, there you go. Usually it's paired with a fairly generic D&D style fantasy world. That's usually how it's kind of come out recently, more or less, where basically all the rules kind of follow the same stereotypical D&D fantasy world for it. But basically, just to give you guys some examples of kind of some popular ones, I think Sword Art Online is one. Overlord is a big one. Trying to think. Eminence in Shadow is a big one. Yeah, there's a huge, decent number of these that have kind of come across. We have a lot of them. What is it? Timer was reincarnated as a slime. I think technically, let's see, Devil is a part timer. It's kind of a reverse one, basically. Let's see, part timer. And basically it just kind of goes on basic. Usually it starts off with suddenly main characters walking around suddenly in another world, and then the story goes from there. And they basically go with that. I've read a few others of these. Honestly can't remember a lot of the names because most of them are really bad. There's been a huge influx of these, it feels like. Probably previously, but now as of recently, it seems to be a decent number of these, and it's just one of those where it's just like these are not at all that they could use some work. Let's just put it that way. So basically, but it's kind of just answer the question of why are they popular, and what do they, most importantly, what do they offer? What do they offer us as a story? What do they offer the audience, and why are they popular, basically? So what it is, I would say number one, the main thing is they usually start off with this aspect is of it could be me, where basically it kind of gives us this idea or feeling that something like this could happen to me. Because basically what it is, you have a main character who's going about a normal life, doing, all those normal things that normal people do. And then something suddenly happens, and then they are transported into another world. And this is kind of how usually they start off. So basically, main character doing normal things. Sometimes it'll have the main character will die, and he'll go into another world. Oh yeah, I was trying to think of another one. Solo Leveler is basically, I would consider that an isekai, basically, but it's kind of like a real world isekai. It kind of follows every function of isekai, except for the real world is kind of more like a video game, and that's kind of how it started. But again, it's not perfect, but it kind of just give you an idea for it. Let's see, I think that's it. We'll go with that. All right, main character is transferred into another world, and so what this does is it basically grounds it into someone you can identify with, and that's basically the sole job of this. And it usually does it okay, but it's kind of funny that's even where it's just kind of suddenly, they'll have the main character death, and it's like 5 minutes in, and then you've got the rest of the 15-minute episode, and it's basically that 5 minutes is what ties us to the real world. But it's literally just like guys in the real world, then he dies, and then into fantasy world, and just honestly jumps off from there. So it's one of those where it's barely tying up, but it's the idea is it could be me. I could be going along my things, and wouldn't it be cool if I respawned in a new world? it's just basically that. That's it. That is it from there. So, second thing. This is kind of one thing that I think is a little bit under the table, but it's kind of the same thing that zombie apocalypse movies benefit from, where it's no social expectations. Because usually there's some sort of, essentially the main character dies, usually in all of these. They are no longer where they are, and they are now in a new spot with new expectations, new people, everything like this. All of this is something where it's just you basically start at zero. Nobody expects anything of you. And again, this is exactly what everybody loves about the zombie apocalypse movies. It's kind of the zombies as well that they like, but it's not always. Usually the zombie apocalypse, everyone's favorite parts is the whole breakdown of social expectations and everything like that. It's one of those where they just nothing is expected of you, and you can just run around and live your life, and everyone likes that. That's what people like. They like the expectation of just living is good enough. And there's some comfort in that, oddly enough, because I think there's just a lot of pressure in the world to kind of continually strive and be more and go more and do more, and you're not enough. And they want to be enough. And it's odd that it takes a zombie apocalypse or being transported to another world for that to happen, but most people just want to be enough. And this helps solve them that, because it's like, if you're transported into another world, yeah, you can just do your thing. And that's one thing that it kind of helps identify, is a lot of times the main character just is kind of like, what the heck? What's going on? I don't know what's going on. And they're just kind of expected to do their thing, and they get a chance to kind of just be themselves. Usually that's very clueless, or, sometimes overpowered, because we see a decent strain of overpowered main characters coming through, and so we kind of get to see that as far as a new thing. But basically that's kind of just what the rough expectation is. And this is something that it's not really typical of isekais. This is just kind of stories in general, so maybe this is not the greatest point for it, but this is kind of more or less all stories, what most people love about stories in general. One, it could be me, but what does it give us? It gives us purpose. So usually with these stories, there's, that comes along with it as a quest. Because again, this is kind of I guess maybe I should specify, it's modern isekais. What do they offer? What do they offer us? And one of the things that they offer is basically this idea of, you should go do this. It is a purpose-giving aspect to it. And again, it may seem that this kind of contradicts or goes against the social expectation, but there's no expectation to really succeed. You can just kind of be you. You can also do this, and I say purpose is also, I guess, purpose. Maybe I should just do it more. It's purpose/fun. Because basically we get to live in a fantasy world. Oops. Live in a fantasy world, and that is our purpose, basically. The purpose is to live inside of a fantasy world and do this. This is where we kind of see a lot more, slice of lives, basically, that are coming out in this, same fantasy world, basically, where we can become a shopkeeper, where we can become, more of just a regular person. Maybe you want to be a peasant, and you see this, the expectations. No one wants you to necessarily be the hero. Maybe we could do that. Maybe you could be like kind of not quite an anti-hero. I was trying to think of what shield hero is, but it's not quite, not really an anti-hero in that. He's more just a reluctant hero in that sort of idea. But basically it's a slice of life where it just lets us kind of live and do our daily thing. But basically all of this kind of ties into a lot of the modern isekais in terms of what they offer and why they're compelling. Because it is kind of funny, because it always is, the question is, why is this so popular? Oops. So, and it basically is, well, why also is this? The other thing that's kind of funny is, why are these all the same? And that's probably even the better question, is why is something that can continually be absolutely the same so popular? And it's because it offers us something really, really fun. It adds this kind of just I want to live in a fantasy world and I want to be free to do whatever I want to do. And that's kind of what people want. That's what people love. And again, we kind of ground it with this, it could be me. It's not that you're born this way. It's not that it's, man, I wish I could be in a fantasy world. It's, oh, I could be me and then go to the fantasy world. I could do that. That's a bit more realistic than, you know, just being born in a fantasy world, more or less from there. You know, we've got this aspect, social identification, and then we got living in a fantasy world, or purpose. I guess you could say either one, just depending on which story. Again, these are kind of general for all stories, but it really comes into play in a fantasy world because it's kind of, you're kind of given a blank slate. You kind of get to just almost start over. And that's what, it's really appealing to people because they just want to, they honestly just want to be enough and they want permission. Most people are oftentimes looking for permission to live life as they want to, and it's really hard for people to do that. And that's kind of what the breakdown of social expectations and the breakdown of expectations can kind of give you. So, but yeah, this will be a short one today. I hope you guys learned something, and I will see you in the next one.